Hi, welcome to You
Me.
and CV. I'm Mike.
I'm Gia.
And today we're going to be talking about the pilot episode of Big Little Lies.
Big Little Lies was created and written by David E. Kelley and premiered on February 19th, 2017.
Season 1 is available to stream on HBO, and Season 2 is currently airing. But we're going to be talking about the first episode of the first season, and that episode title is Somebody's Dead.
Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Let me go ahead and start off by reading the HBO description of Big Little Lies. Based on Liane Moriarty's best-selling book and featuring Reese Witherspoon, Nicole Kidman, and Shailene Woodley, this darkly comedic series tells the tale of three mothers whose seemingly perfect lives unravel to the point of murder. What do we think about that HBO description, Gia?
Well, I have some thoughts on it, but they're kind of spoilery, so I won't say them.
All right, well, hey, let's talk about it a little bit. You've seen the whole first season and the first episode of the second season, right?
Yep, I'm all caught up.
Excellent. I've only seen the first, 3 episodes maybe, because we started watching it when it came out, and then I think we got rid of HBO, and I was like, we'll let you keep watching it, and I just didn't have time to watch it, but I've been watching that first episode, a few times to prepare for the podcast. I like it. I'm into it. And as far as my opinion of the description there, their seemingly perfect lives unravel to the point of murder. That's if you're getting to the point of murder, you got other issues going on than just your life kind of unraveling. That's
it's a bit much.
It's a little bit much. Anyway, let's talk about Big Little Lies. Of course, Big Little Lies is part of the expanded cinematic Liarverse, which features Big Little Lies, Pretty Little Liars, and the 2002 Frankie Muniz movie Big Fat Liar.
Oh, those all take place in the same universe?
They do. Yeah, there's Reese Witherspoon makes a small cameo in all of them. Yeah, that's not true. I've actually never seen Big Fat Liar.
I don't think anyone has.
Well, some people, I'm sure.
Yeah, Frankie Muniz probably did.
That's true. And Amanda Bynes.
Yeah. But
also, Paul Giamatti.
I don't think he watched it.
I'm sure
I think he likes to pretend it didn't happen.
All I remember about Big Fat Liar is that he's covered in blue, like blue paint or something on the movie cover, maybe on the VHS cover. I don't know. But no, I'm being silly. Big Little Lies, though, it is based on a book, like we mentioned in the description there. That description, or that book, also titled Big Little Lies. And that author, we were talking about earlier, just you and I were talking about how we used to pick out books that we would read based on the TV shows or movies. Like, for example, Nick Hornby, who wrote About a Boy and High Fidelity, and he wrote a bunch of other books too that are not, but he wrote a bunch, and a TV show too, which I've never watched that show for About a Boy.
Yeah, not a great TV show, in my opinion.
But I used to read other books by those authors, then that's how I would find new books to read and stuff like that. So Liane Moriarty, she's got several books, and they've got titles like Truly Madly Guilty. Does that sound exciting?
It does, yeah. It sounds.
I should mention.
Do you think it has the what's that band? What's the band that has the Truly Madly Deeply?
Oh, that's what is the name of that? It's Sound something, right? Oh my gosh, why are we blanking on the band that does Truly Madly Deeply?
I don't know, but do you think if they optioned that for a TV show, would that song be in it?
Well, I think it would have to be
Savage Garden.
Savage Garden.
Not Soundgarden.
I know that. Okay, let's just for 1 second, let's clarify. I know that Soundgarden does not do Truly Madly Deeply. That was in my head. I had the wrong half of it that was part of it. Right. Garden, Savage Garden.
But we got there. So
we made it.
Okay.
Yes. Truly Madly Guilty. Another title of hers is The Husband's Secret, another book by Liane Moriarty. Also 9 Perfect Strangers, which is exactly what you would think. It is Bronson Pinchot from Perfect Strangers, but it's like a cross between that and Multiplicity, where there's 9 of him. And I'm throwing the jokes out early here. Look, on our last episode, we talked about the show Rami, and I had some jokes and some clever points I was going to make, and I didn't write them in the notes, and so I wrote all my jokes in the notes this time, guys. So
that's the best way to tell jokes.
I think so. No, but
to bullet point them and make sure you hit everyone.
Of course. Hey, look, I used to do comedy. That's how you do it. We should mention too that Liane Moriarty is Australian, and this is an Australian book, so the setting is totally different in the in the book.
Yeah, because in the TV show, it's set in Monterey, California.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's just dive right into the episode a little bit. You know, with this particular episode, we approached it a little bit differently. We're not going to talk about every single scene like we normally do, but we're going to talk about some of the significant scenes, some of the things that stood out as we were watching it. And because, you know, for one, too, you should check out the show because it's on HBO, but hey, let's do a little plug here for Amazon because I'm going to tell you what, Amazon is not paying us. HBO is not paying us. And wouldn't it be cool if they were?
Yeah.
But
yeah, if anyone wants to pay us, we'll take it.
We will take it. But you should get an Amazon Prime subscription because you get not only that free shipping, but you get this like crazy assortment of movies and TVs all to stream, and movies and TV shows all to stream on their app. Plus you can like buy seasons of TV shows and things like that. But the HBO add-on on Amazon is like, it's the same price as it is getting it anywhere else, but it's like super easy. You just click on a button and boom, there you go. It just gets billed to your Amazon account. It's fantastic.
Then you can cancel it the next month.
You cancel it anytime. You just you can let the whole series, you know, play, and then you get it at the end of the series, and then you watch it all at once and then cancel it. Boom, it's awesome. So you should definitely check this out doing that. And not only HBO, but like the other channels too, Showtime, all that, CBS All Access.
Yeah.
They're all on there. Also, so anyway, yeah, that's how you can watch it. But yeah, let's just start it off. Let's get right into it. The opening sequence. You like the theme music. You were talking about that.
I love the theme music. Oh,
yeah.
It's really cool.
So the song that's playing, it's Cold Little Heart by Michael Kiwanuka. And a side note about the music in this show, one, it's awesome, and we'll talk more about it, but there's a Spotify playlist, like an official HBO Spotify playlist.
Yeah, and a thing we've been doing since we've been doing this podcast is like the day that we're going to record the podcast, we'll just like throw on the Spotify playlist for the show that we're doing and listen
and we
to
just
that
jam
during the
out
day,
to it,
like to get in the mood. Yeah, and it's like it's such a nice way to spend the day.
I'll tell you what, I was getting ready for the podcast earlier. I took a little shower, dimmed the lights a little bit, had this music playing. I felt like some of the rich people in the show.
Yeah, these people are so rich.
I felt actually more like the slightly less rich person in the show.
Who still must be pretty rich to live in this town at all, but we'll get there.
So, but that music's playing, and I feel like this opening scene, it's kind of cool too, or the opening sequence. So it's got all of these moms driving to school, and we'll talk more about those characters in a minute, but they're driving and they're taking their kids to school. But it actually feels like, to me, when I was watching it, I had to double check on the second episode to make sure that it actually was an opening sequence, because it could have easily just been the first scene in the show.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of visuals of the coast, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, this is a very beautiful place, Monterey, California.
Yeah.
And everybody is super rich, and they live in really nice houses. They've
fantastic.
got really nice clothes. Yeah.
Now, side note though too is that the book again is set in Australia, and so rather than the opening sequence or the opening part of the book, them driving all to school, it's them in kangaroo pouches with the
that's true. Yeah, that's a detail.
That's actually they changed that.
Yeah.
Sometimes they change things from the book to
the book had a lot
show.
more kangaroos, a lot of giant insects.
Boomerangs were in there.
Boomerangs for sure.
Yeah. Is this offensive to Australian people?
Probably. Sorry.
Maybe. Did not mean to. They're not oppressed. Probably. Actually, I have no idea.
Not sure.
Some of them might be. I don't know. Well, let's just move on from that. Let's talk about the characters in the show and some of the actors and actresses in it. And so this is from Vulture. There's a character breakdown here, sort of from the a review of the first episode. So I'm going to go ahead and read that. It says, 4 mobs are at the center of Big Little Lies. Madeline Martha McKenzie, played by Reese Witherspoon, the blonde butterfly of Monterey. Celeste Wright, played by Nicole Kidman, the filthy rich wounded beauty. Jane Chapman, played by Shailene Woodley, the withholding newcomer. And Renata Klein, Laura Dern, the rule-abiding career woman.
Interesting. So the HBO descriptions gave us 3 moms. This Vulture article is giving us 4 moms, and I would argue that there's 5 moms who are really at the center of this.
Yeah, because there's Zoe Kravitz, right?
Yeah, Bonnie is her character's name. Yeah, so
there's
a lot of moms.
There's a lot of moms. And this show, too.
And a few dads.
There's a few dads as well. Adam Scott is in this.
Yeah.
I love Adam Scott of Parks and Recreation, of a few episodes of Boy Meets World. And he played the bully briefly. I think we talked about that on the Parks and Recreation. Griff. Yeah. And
the cool bully.
He is so cool. He's in my favorite episode. But hey, we'll talk about Boy Meets World another time, and I guarantee that. We were watching just a side note here. It was Friday night last night, and you know what I did? I threw on Family Matters on Hulu. After Family Matters, I threw on some Boy Meets World. After Boy Meets World, I threw on some Step by Step, and then we capped off the night with a little bit of Hanging with Mr. Cooper. It was a good time.
Yeah. Just living your best life in
It's
1994.
happening. It's all happening. So this episode, though, of Big Little Lies, the episode title, Somebody's Dead, which they do say on the screen, which I've mentioned before on this podcast. I love it when they tell us the episode title in it.
Yeah, it's important to me. I want to know.
Yeah, and this, Somebody's Dead, that's a good episode title, right?
Yeah.
Because here's what it tells me.
Hooked.
Somebody's dead.
Right.
I want to know.
Right.
And
but we don't know who.
We don't know. We just know
Even
it's.
by the end of the episode, we don't know.
That's a mystery.
Who's dead.
Yeah. Do we find out? Should I know? Do we know? I don't know. You don't need to. Let's not spoil.
We will find out by the end of season 1.
Oh man.
Yes.
Got to keep watching.
Yeah.
All right. Somebody's dead. The episode, it starts off at I guess then it's at the end of the season. It starts off at the end of the season, and there's some detectives arriving at a school fundraiser, very fancy school fundraiser.
Yes.
Fancier than any school fundraiser that I think you or I will ever go to in our lifetime.
For sure, yeah. And all the women are dressed like Audrey Hepburn.
Okay, yeah.
All the men are dressed like Elvis.
Are they? See, I only kind of caught that. I noticed there was a lot of Elvis on that Spotify playlist, though, so that's going to come into play.
Yeah, and that's something in the opening sequence there when that song was playing, and there's the driving, but there's also that part where
they're all walking, doing a little model pose kind of thing.
Yeah, all the kids walk up to the camera and do model poses, but also all the moms walk up to the camera and doing model poses, and they're all in that sequence.
Okay.
All the moms are dressed like Audrey Hepburn characters.
Okay.
And that's because of the theme of this fundraiser.
Oh, right. Excellent. Now, we don't know that yet, but they do those flash forwards to it.
Yeah, but we see them dressed like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. So, you know what? It's not just a fundraiser. It's also a murder scene. Yes. Somebody is dead there. And the next thing we see some police interrogations that are sort of intercut with scenes of the parents taking their kids to school on the school's orientation day. So at the beginning of the year on the orientation day. And there's some stuff that happens as Reese Witherspoon's character is taking her kids to school. At one point, so I'm not going to go into all the little details, so I'm just going to be kind of vague in the descriptions here, but Reese Witherspoon, she trips and falls when she's getting out of her car talking to her daughter, and Shailene Woodley's character comes to her aid and comes to help her.
Yeah, and I think that was after Shailene Woodley's little boy was like, should we see if that lady is okay? Which gives us the sense right away that Shailene Woodley and her little boy are both empathetic characters. They care about people, right? They're good people.
I think so. Yeah. And
which is an important thing to note.
And also, I mentioned that extended liar verse. Also, Shailene Woodley, her kid here is, of course, the kid that she had in Secret Life of the American Teenager.
Oh, right. Yes. I didn't realize that was part of the extended liar verse.
Oh, it is. Everything on ABC Family or Freeform. Yeah,
what about Liar Liar?
A Liar Liar is also... Jim Carrey shows up in episode 7, and he just starts spitting mad truths on everybody. Anyway, though, what happens here, though, there's something... So... I like this show, but on the first watching of it, when we watched it last year or whatever, there were some things that kind of bothered me about it that I felt took me out of the show. And I kind of get the vibe of it now a little bit more, but I'm going to point out a few things here. So these police interrogations, they're interrogating, I guess, all of these other parents at the school, teachers.
The people being interrogated are minor
characters, tertiary characters.
Yeah, who are just basically commenting on what they've observed about the women at the core of this story. Right.
And so that part right when Reese Witherspoon trips and falls and Shailene Woodley helps her out, it cuts to one of the people being interrogated and he says, it's possible that had she not fallen, nobody would have gotten killed.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that's...
So am I to assume that this whole story about how they met and how she tripped and fell that one day was told to everybody?
Everybody knows,
that doesn't make any sense. There's another part where she says at one point, I didn't write this one down, but Reese Witherspoon says at one point I've got a nose for that kind of thing. And then it cuts to another interrogation and they're like, no, what she had a nose for was being up in people's business. Yeah, and it was what? Why are they responding to what's happening in the past? They knew all these details. It just felt like like bad writing and
Yeah.
stuff. Maybe it sounded good in the book, but it took me out of it in the beginning.
Yeah, I think it is something that probably works better in the book. This whole framing mechanism of the people being interrogated, I think, is just supposed to show us that like this is a town where everybody's like paying attention and judging everybody else and like gossiping about each other.
Would you call it a gossip town?
I would call it Gossip Town.
Would you call it a grapple hound?
Yeah.
That's the name of one of Andy's songs on Parks and Recreation.
Yep.
One of Mouse Rat's songs.
Yeah.
That's what is it? What's the guy? Brandanowitz. Mark Brandanowitz. He's
thinks
like,
it's
I really like
Grapple
that song
Hound.
Grapple Hound. And I think Anne's like, Gossip Town?
Yeah. Yeah, because they're kind of like doing the Nickelback slurring in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anyway.
That's neither here nor there.
So those were some things that I didn't like. There's a little bit more that I didn't like here. And so I like the idea of having a detective investigating a crime throughout the season. So
Yes.
like they set it up. We know there's a murder and we know we're building to finding out who did the murder or whatever.
Yes.
Who did the murder? Who did the killing? Who murdered?
Yes.
Yeah. So I like that because I think it builds suspense. And I think that's
And
cool.
also the audience is trying to figure out who was murdered. 'cause-
There's a lot of we gotta know who was murdered, who's doing the murdering,
Yeah.
why, and so that's all cool. I like that. But here's my issue: there's a similar show, similar to a certain extent. It's got some other narrative things going on, but there's a similar show that also has a coastal setting and also has a similar opening sequence as well, using the ocean and stuff like that. And that show is on Showtime, and it came out a few years before this, I think. It's called The Affair. It's a fantastic show. I love that show, and I love how
the first season is really good.
Right, yeah, it kind of drops down a little
Yeah.
bit. They kind
The
of
first
drag it
season
on
is
too
a
long.
Really good season.
But
Yeah.
there's a mystery involved in a death in that one. It's similar kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the detective in that is I don't know the actor's name. I didn't write it down, but it's the guy who plays Deacon in King of Queens.
Is it? I forgot that.
Yeah, he is. He's the one doing all the investigating, and it's fantastic. But let me tell you my issue here. Big Little Lies uses the same structure, and they use the actress Marin Dungy, is her name, or Dungy? That's the actress who plays Deacon's wife on The King of Queens.
Yeah,
So you
it
mean to tell
is.
me we got two prestige cable shows where we've got one which is Deacon investigating the crime in very like obvious sort of structure kind of way, and then another one where the actress who played Deacon's wife is investigating
Would
the
you
crime?
prefer Doug Heffernan?
I'm just saying,
Mall Cop?
nobody at HBO was like, isn't this kind of weird? There's this other show on the other network that has Deacon on it, and now we're having Deacon's wife on this? That seems weird to me. Like, is nobody else catching that? Not that it's like an issue, but it's weird. It would totally be weird.
is
Could you imagine if it was Kevin James on one show and then the next show a similar structure and it's Leah Remini? That'd be weird.
That would be almost as weird as how Kevin James went on to have that other show. What's it called? Is it Kevin Can Wait?
I think it's Kevin Can Wait.
Kevin Can Wait, where he had
real quick. That was around the time where there were a lot of Kevin shows on TV
Yeah,
there
there
was
were
Kevin
several, so I don't know.
sort
if
of
I'm
saves the
talking about the
world
right
or
one.
something.
Yeah. But this is the one where Kevin James had a wife who was played by Erin Hayes, and I think after the first season they killed her off. And brought in
Leah
his
Remini
wife from King of Queens, Leah Remini, to replace her. So,
It's sort of similar in a way.
yeah. What were we talking about?
We were just talking about the structure of having a detective investigate.
Anyway, back to Big Little Lies.
Back to Big Little Lies. You know, one thing we mentioned here is that Shailene Woodley is driving with her son in the back.
Yes.
Her son's name is Ziggy. Well, actually, the actor's name, I didn't look it up, but he's the same guy. I knew he looked familiar, and I was like, who is this kid? He's Young Sheldon. From the show Young Sheldon.
Oh,
that Big Bang Theory
interesting.
spinoff, which
Okay.
I forgot was a thing.
Is that still a thing?
I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, okay.
But his character name is Ziggy. And Reese Witherspoon, I think her character, side note too, I'm going to call all these people by their actor names because
It's just going to be easier.
It's just going to be
go
easier.
with it. Just accept that that's what we're going to do. Okay.
But Reese Witherspoon says to Shailene Woodley, "Oh, Ziggy? Like Ziggy Stardust?" I'm going to be honest. That might be where your mind goes
Yes.
to start off. That's not where my mind goes. My mind
No?
goes straight to Ziggy, the comic strip guy.
Oh, yeah. There's that Ziggy, too.
And then, so my other critique, I would have named him after Ziggy, the comic guy. It would Ziggy like Ziggy Stardust? No, Ziggy, from the comics. He's always having a rough day or whatever.
That's a good point.
Thank you. So let's jump forward. The next scene I want to talk about. Again, we're skipping some scenes because we're not getting into everything.
Oh, but that was the scene where like Shailene Woodley and Reese Witherspoon become friends, and Shailene Woodley is like new to town.
She's new to town,
and Reese Witherspoon kind of like rules this town.
Yeah.
So she's a good friend to have.
And this is kind of one of those like pilot structure, you know, being the first episode, setting things up. We've got a mysterious newcomer.
Yeah.
So she has coffee with one of the other moms, Nicole Kidman, in a later scene here after they drop the kids off. Yeah. And it's at this wharf kind of looking place, little coffee shop, restaurant, diner that's like on the water.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yes, it is. Everything in the show is beautiful.
It really is. It's fun. You know, I tell you, I was drinking some coffee this morning, watching this show at like 7 a.m. when I woke up before the baby got up and everything. I'm just relaxing and enjoying it. It was enjoyable.
Yeah, it is. This is kind of, I would call it like a guilty pleasure kind of show.
Yeah, I think you'd say that. And especially, too, for men. Like, not to be, you know, gender stereotypes or whatever, but it feels like this is not necessarily a show. It's definitely not a show directed toward men.
No, it's like a female-centric show.
Yeah.
Like most of the lead characters are women.
But, hey, it's got murder, you know? I can get into it.
Right.
I mean, women like murder, too, but...
Hey, love it.
Men like murder too. But there's this scene though where they're at the wharf getting some coffee, and you kind of learn more about the characters. I mentioned before, Shailene Woodley's character is new in town. She says a line where she says, "Sometimes when I'm in a new place, I get this sensation like, if only I were here." And I think Reese Witherspoon goes, "You are here." Kind of shows her.
Yeah.
But she's like, "No, I didn't write down the rest of the line." But she's like, kind of feel like I don't. You know, I'm just on the outside looking in, and I think that, you know, and those kind of things.
Seems to be.
She does.
An outsider.
Because she's not poor, but she's not a rich person like the other people are.
She's younger than the other moms. She's a single mom.
Yeah. She works, but just part time. And but that, you know, those kind of things in pilots kind of help to show the characters having these conversations.
Yeah. And I think also earlier in the episode, Reese Witherspoon said that the over under in this town is 150,000. So if you're making less than that, it's like you're not even working.
Right. Yeah.
So which Shailene Woodley is not making that much. Neither is Reese Witherspoon, because she just works part-time in community theater.
Right.
But her husband is making more.
Yeah, and you got to be making more than 150,000 to afford these houses, though. Too. I found an
These
article.
Houses are mansions.
They're like multi-million-dollar mansions.
Yeah.
Even Shailene Woodley's house, I think it said it was like 530,000 or something like that.
Yeah, which is a house which, if it were around where we live, would maybe be like
160, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. I was thinking even less than that, but if it was in Columbus, it would be more. But we're like in the suburbs of that.
In the suburbs.
Yeah, but where they're at, it's way more. Yeah.
Now, there's one thing I wanted to point out in this scene is that this does something that I think pilots do sometimes that are very exciting, especially these, you know, mysterious kind of, you know, limited series style kind of pilots here, is that there's a moment, and you could even miss it and you're watching it, when after Shailene Woodley is talking a little bit, it cuts to somebody that's like in the diner, like peeking around the corner at them, and then it cuts away from it real quick. And I was like looking, I was like, do we see that character again? I had to look it up on IMDb and stuff. So the character, did I write that down? No, I didn't write it down, but we don't know. We don't know who it is. I mean, you know who it is. And I looked it up on IMDb. He appears in multiple episodes. I was just checking. I was like, that wasn't a weird thing. That was like a different character that I should have recognized. So setting up some suspense there.
Yeah.
And my theory on that, and I don't know really what happens at all. Shailene Woodley said that she doesn't know anybody here or anything like that. And then it cuts to that dude who's kind of peeking around the corner. I feel like there's some connection. Maybe the father of her kid. I don't know.
I can't tell you.
Yeah, don't tell me.
No.
But that's my guess.
Okay.
That's what it feels like.
Okay. I'm not going to tell you anything.
Wow.
But yeah, also in this scene where Shailene Woodley and Reese Witherspoon and Nicole Kidman are having coffee, I think Shailene Woodley says something like, the two of you are just so like, she's commenting on how like beautiful and perfect they are and how perfect their lives seems, and she says like, everything about you guys seems so right, and that makes me feel so wrong for some reason. Something to that effect is what she says. And it's like, on the surface it seems like Nicole Kidman and Reese Witherspoon are leading these perfect lives, but they're not as perfect as they seem.
They're getting ready to unravel to the point of murder.
Yeah, they sure are.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's talk about the next scene after that. Well, I don't know if it's the next scene after that.
Is that when they're back to the school?
No, but it's before that. But I want to talk about, so the way that there's some interspersed scenes going on throughout a little bit, and we see a shot of Shailene Woodley running on the beach, but it's cut in with a few different visuals there. So she's running on the beach in like workout clothes or whatever, doing a jog. But then there's also shots of her running in a blue dress that sort of seems like it's falling off a little bit. Can't really tell. And then there's also shots where they show footprints in the sand with like maybe a barefoot and one dress shoe on, or maybe 2 bare feet and 2 dress shoes. It's a little hard to tell. But that's kind of cool, you know.
But it looks like women's bare feet and maybe a man's dress shoe.
Perhaps, yeah.
It's not like heels. The dress shoe.
Oh yeah, it's a men's dress shoe. Yeah. And so that's kind of a cool thing where it's doing, because it's jumping around. It's like, is that the night of the murder? Is that some other time?
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what's going on there.
Yeah,
and this is
kind of like a teaser.
A little bit of a teaser there, and they do a lot of that throughout this. Season 1 is directed by Jean-Marc Vallée, and he also directed season 1 of Sharp Objects, which we've watched, and we love that show. That was a cool show.
That was a really good show.
But it does a lot of the same things. Like when I was watching this after having seen Sharp Objects, I got into it a lot more because I was like, well, I loved all that stuff they did in Sharp Objects, and they do a lot of that here too. So for me, that was kind of like a really cool, I don't know, as a connection. It was almost like when I was watching this, it felt like, you know, when you see a director who directs like 2 movies and they feel like the same, that's what it felt like to me. And so, hey, if you like Sharp Objects, you'll probably like Big Little Lies. And, you know, if it sounded like I was struggling there, trying to make a point there, and was like, hey, it felt like you were watching a movie and then another movie by the same director, it's because our phones were just going off because we had a tornado warning. And so from like, I don't know if you hit the little back 10 seconds thing on the podcast, that was like a half hour ago in
for
our
us,
time, because we were just in the basement for a little while.
Yep.
Yeah, so had to
But
wake
we're
up.
back.
We're back. We had to wake up a baby, carry him down there, but
get the cat. Yeah,
you know,
it was a big ordeal.
It was, but hey, we're here and we're talking about we're talking about Big Little Lies.
Yeah.
I was talking about Sharp Objects though, because again, it's the same director there. Very stylistic show though, and I like it. It's very cool.
Yeah. And earlier we were talking about how we would like read books that were by an author. Yeah, that like shows or movies have been based on. And by the way, Sharp Objects, which has the show has the same director as this, is also based on a book by Gillian Flynn, who also wrote Gone Girl.
And Gone Girl is a similar kind of vibe too.
Yeah, so if you liked Sharp Objects or the show Sharp Objects, or if you liked
just sharp objects in general, just knives and stuff.
If you like those, if you liked the movie Gone Girls, Gone Girl. You would probably like Big Little Lies.
Gone Girls is sort of like the kind of thing that like my mom does when she's talking about movies and things. She like changes it so it's just slightly wrong.
Yeah,
but I feel like she knows that it's wrong.
When she calls Chick-fil-A Chick-a-Phil.
Chick-a-Phil.
Yeah, or I think it was my aunt who called Buca de Beppo Betty de Boop Boops.
Betty de Boop Boop. Somebody called it that.
I think it was my aunt. Yeah.
Well. But hey, let's talk about another scene in here. And this scene really stood out to me as it was another moment that took me out of the show a little bit. Maybe worked in a book, maybe worked in Australia. Doesn't really work for me here, but they do kind of address that as well. But this is the scene when they're picking up the children from orientation. These are first graders.
Yes.
And it's the first day of school kind of thing. And all the moms are there picking up the kids.
Oh, I think maybe real quick before we get into this, let's just go over who all the moms are and who their kids are. So we said...
I don't know any of the kids' names. I'm going to talk about some of the ones a little bit later. But I don't know any... You can... Yeah, who do we got?
Well, so Reese Witherspoon has a little girl. I think Chloe is her name. And Chloe is very popular. And then there's Shailene Woodley has Ziggy, the new boy, who's like a shy, sweet little boy. Laura Dern has a little girl named Amabella, who we're going to hear about in a second. Yeah. Nicole Kidman has 2 little boys whose names I forget right now. And and then Zoe Kravitz has a little girl whose name I also forget. But no, this is significant because so Zoe Kravitz has a little girl and Reese Witherspoon has a little girl, and those two little girls have a sister in common because Reese Witherspoon's first husband is now married to Zoe Kravitz. So Reese has an older daughter who is a sister of both the girls, and that's like creating some tension between them.
Awesome. Yeah. It is complicated.
It's complicated, yeah.
Not to be confused with It's Complicated, the Meryl Streep movie. But hey, side note, Meryl Streep is in season 2. So
yeah, so
fact.
It is complicated.
It is. So what had happened, though, at the school day is the teacher gathers all the parents outside of the building. They're outside of the room. They're all outdoors. And the teacher, it's like a young female teacher. She mentions that somebody hurt Annabella.
No.
Amabella. Yeah, but no, she says someone hurt Annabella.
Oh, yeah.
And she's corrected. Because Amabella is not a name.
Right.
So, of course, she doesn't say that to start off with. That's a fun little part there. I like. Yeah.
Somebody choked Amabella, who is Laura Dern's character's daughter.
Right, yeah, somebody choked her. And not just kind of choked her. There's red marks on her neck.
Yeah.
On the neck of a first
terrifying,
grader. And
but she either doesn't know the name, the little girl doesn't know the name of who hurt her, or she's reluctant to say it.
Yeah, and so the teacher's bright idea is to gather all the children and their parents outdoors here and at the end of the day and explain what happened and say, whoever did it, you need to confess now. And then nobody confesses. And then she says to the kid, who did it? Points at who did it. And it's this is not
the worst teaching move I've ever seen.
It's terrible,
ever, right?
I am an educator. This is not how you do it.
She might as well have given everybody stones to start throwing at the person who was accused.
And that took me out of it a little bit because
it's appalling. I can't imagine this happening. It's such a terrible move.
Yeah, and because as a teacher too, it's this is. Well, it's just when this teacher would be fired. This is a public school.
The worst possible way to handle this situation.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's how she does it.
Right, yeah. And so what happens is that the girl does point to Ziggy.
Shailene Woodley's son.
Yeah, and not the comic strip character. And she accuses him. He says he didn't do it. The mom believes him. There's a little altercation there. But yeah, that's what goes on there.
Laura Dern does not believe him.
Laura Dern is not having it.
But and Reese Witherspoon is sticking up for her new friend, Shailene.
Yeah.
I forget all these characters' names.
Yes.
It's not important.
So, but hey, let's talk about another scene though. There's another scene that stood out to me when they're at dinner. And this is Reese Witherspoon, Adam Scott. That's her husband.
Her new husband, her second husband. So he's the father of her first grader, but not of her teenage daughter.
Right.
He's also at the dinner.
Yeah, both the daughters are at the dinner there. And I thought there was an important line here between Witherspoon and her older daughter where they're talking about the events of the day. And Reese Witherspoon says, bruises heal, but stigmas can last a lifetime, referring to the stigma of Ziggy being a bully.
Oh, yeah, because she was kind of explaining the events of the day and saying, could there be anything, can you imagine anything worse than, being labeled as, somebody who had strangled somebody on the first day, and her daughter's oh, I don't know, being the person who got strangled might be worse.
And then the daughter, though, after the quote I said, says, you don't think assault victims bear lifetime emotional injuries? And that to me felt like a quote that really stood out as maybe significant because we're talking about women. We're talking about women that might be dealing with some issues.
This will be a recurring theme throughout this series for sure.
And so, also you mentioned before, I've got in my notes here, Zoe Kravitz's character is married to Reese Witherspoon's character's ex-husband, and there's tension that arises from that relationship. A little bit of the tension, which kind of stood out to us too, is another thing that didn't really make a whole lot of sense, is that Reese Witherspoon, we mentioned she doesn't work, but she works part-time in doing community theater. They're putting on a production of Avenue Q, which I think they say it in the show. That's the one where the puppets say the F word or something like that.
Yeah, it's like a puppet show, but dirty.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Sesame Street spoof, but tackling issues of like racism and stuff in a funny way. And there's been a petition going around town, and Zoe Kravitz's character has signed that petition to cancel the show because saying it's inappropriate, and that causes even more tension.
That kind of compounds the ongoing issues between Reese Witherspoon and Zoe Kravitz.
But to me, that stood out. That's like, would this, because she's like a yoga instructor,
like
kind of like
hippie,
a hippie hipster. She wouldn't sign that.
She's not someone I can imagine trying to censor the theater, the community theater in any way. Yeah, so that felt disingenuous to me. I don't think that
I wonder what the real
happened.
what was in, if that plot line was in the book, because I don't know if Avenue Q is something that rings true the same way over there. Like, do they have Sesame Street over there? I don't even know.
I'm not sure. But yeah, that felt weird.
Yeah. But those are just minor things. The whole show has kind of got a certain vibe to it too, that once you get into it, it's like, oh yeah, I'm into it. Yeah. And cool. So, I want to talk about another thing in here, the use of music in this show, particularly in this next scene that I want to talk about.
Yeah, it's really good music. Also, I'm just going to make a quick comment that I think the music that everybody's listening to in this show, like, I don't think these characters are actually cool enough to listen to the music that they're listening to. So,
well, all right.
Yeah.
Well, side note
I feel
too,
like they
though,
would be listening to like super poppy music.
Yeah.
And that's not what the music is.
Right. Well, one thing though too is that some of this music sounds like it's really cool, and it is cool but it's all on the Spotify playlist. But we were listening earlier when we were making some food in the kitchen, and there was a song playing. I was like, this is kind of cool. And then we start to hear the vocals, and it's like this female singer, and I was like, okay, all right. And then this like guy starts singing, and it kind of sounds like this, and I was like, is this the B-52s? So some of the music is like, it has that same sound to it.
Like the one B-52 song that everybody knows, Love
right,
Shack.
Love Shack. Also Rock Lobster.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So there's also a lot of covers of some Elvis songs, or at least a few, or at least songs that sound like Elvis songs. But Elvis is really covering
there's a lot
people
of Elvis songs,
anyways, too.
Yeah,
He didn't write those songs, did he? I don't know. Didn't Elvis just cover all the black musicians and steal their music?
I think he did a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. But some of the music in here, the way it's used. So there's a scene after dinner where Reese Witherspoon and Adam Scott are having a fight on the beach, which their house is on the beach. So, at the end of the fight, some music starts to play, and the song playing is Call on Me by Janis Joplin. But I think it's cool because in this scene, the music is coming from the house. Like, you can see them turn their head, and even on the captions, it says like from the stereo or whatever. And 2 times earlier in the show, they've shown the youngest daughter. So I'll kind of dispute your point about they wouldn't be listening to the music, because the youngest daughter, who's like in 1st grade, has shown an interest in music from the very beginning. She was picking out the music in the car, and she was picking out the music at dinner when they were eating. And she said that she wants to run a major record label when she becomes older.
Okay,
and
maybe
so
that's Adam Scott's influence, the dad's influence.
Okay, but still, she's picking out the music.
Reese Witherspoon is picking the music.
Yeah, but she's not. Chloe's picking it, the daughter.
Okay.
And I thought that was kind of cool because it's not mentioned that Chloe put on some music right there, but it's clear that like the daughter was like watching them fight from the house, and then picked just the right music for when they like finished off their fight. So I thought that was a really cool detail and a cool use of music in the show. Yeah.
Also, I would say there are kind of clues to the plot in some of the music.
Okay.
For instance, the first time I'm not sure if it's the first time we see Nicole Kidman's character, or it's one of the first times we see her in this episode. It's when we see her and she's like at home with her little boys, and the boys are like shooting Nerf guns at each other. But we see her there at her house, and there's music playing, and like I'm not going to say what the lyrics to the song are that come on, but the lyrics that come up are significant and tell us a lot about the character.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Pay attention to the music.
Cool.
I guess.
Yeah, another scene with music here that I like too, where they do a similar kind of thing, like I was mentioning earlier, where it's toward the end of the episode, and we'll jump back a little bit here, but Chloe is playing on the piano. She like starts to play a song, and then that song sort of becomes the background music. It's a song called September Song by Agnes Obel. It's like starts with a little piano thing. So I think that's cool too, where they're like playing the song and then that becomes the background, and then we see like all these different shots and stuff like that. So a lot of cool stuff with the music.
Definitely.
It's close to my favorite thing that you can do with music, which I've claimed for a while is my least favorite thing, and maybe I talked about it on the podcast, I don't remember, but where like movies start off and there's music playing.
Yeah, you say you don't like it, but you actually love it.
And then they get into a car and the music's playing in the car, but then when they like get to wherever they're at, they like turn off the car and the music stops, and it's like, but the music was playing like as soon as they woke up, not once they got into the car. It's sort of like that. It's adjacent to that concept, which I think it's fun. Let's talk about this other scene though with Nicole Kidman and her husband, played by Alexander Skarsgård.
Yeah, and I think this is the first time I've seen him in anything, and Alexander Skarsgård was just like a name that I had heard a lot.
Well, there's a few Skarsgård. There's Stellan Skarsgård.
Several.
There's a few Skarsgårds.
Yeah, but I feel like this is the first time I saw one in something, and he's hot.
Oh yeah, but he's
hot.
like an evil looking guy with like.
No, he totally looks evil, but also hot.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Yeah.
Got a thing for the Skarsgård.
Yes.
Is he the only hot Skarsgård?
I didn't look up
You
what
gotta
the
check
other
out the
ones
whole
look
guard
like. I'm
of
not sure.
Scars.
I didn't do a lot of research into this. Just
All right.
what I'm seeing on screen, I'm enjoying.
Well, I think there's an important moment with Alexander Skarsgård where there's a conversation between him and Nicole Kidman where he does not want their twin boys hanging out with Ziggy because Ziggy was accused of strangling Laura Dern's daughter.
Yes.
But then, ironically, as Nicole Kidman's like, I don't think it's a big deal or whatever.
Yeah, because Nicole Kidman had gotten to know Shailene Woodley and her son, and so she felt like the kid probably didn't do it, or if he did do it, it was probably out of character for him, something like that, so she's not concerned about it.
Right, but the ironic thing is here that he grabs her arm like viciously and is like,
does.
I need to know that they're not going to hang out with them.
Yes.
And when I'm not here, I need to make sure everything's going safe or whatever. And she's like, you need to let go of my hand. And so it's, dude, come on. You're telling people to not hang out with violent people and then you're being all violent?
Yeah, and also we get the sense that this is not the first time he's acted in this way.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
I got my eye on you, Alexander Skarsgård.
Yeah.
Gia's got her eyes on you as well.
in a couple of ways.
Whoa. And I'd like to guard your scars. And I want to talk about sort of the final scene here. And there's a few different things happening because there's a lot of different cuts, similar to when I was talking about that director, how he likes to cut in different little things. And maybe they're happening now. Maybe they're happening in another episode. Who knows? But we see a reveal here that Shailene Woodley's character has a gun in her bedside table. And let me tell you a little bit here. You familiar with Chekhov's gun, Gia?
I am, yes.
I am too.
I was an English major.
Well,
I'm familiar.
learned about it from watching TV later, and you told me. But I looked it up on Wikipedia just to make sure I've got a decent definition here. So if you don't know, Chekhov's gun comes from the writer Anton Chekhov. It's sort of a rule based on him. And it says, it's a dramatic principle that states that every element in a story must be necessary, and irrelevant elements should be removed. Elements should not appear to make false promises by never coming into play. So, hey, she's got a bed in the gun side table. The premise here is that gun.
You said a bed in the gun side table.
Did I say that?
Yeah. You did.
That'd be silly. But the premise here is saying that gun's got to be used.
Right.
So here's the trick, though, or here's the twist.
But another thing about writing is sometimes rules, you got to learn the rules so that you can break them.
Okay.
To create suspense.
Well, and they do that in Mad Men. We talked about. I don't want to give out any spoilers here, but yeah. And but the victim who was killed, again, it's somebody. We don't know who it is.
Somebody's dead.
Yeah,
he's dead now.
That's a quote from Veep. But what I want to say though is that he wasn't shot. They talk about his injuries. They say he had like pelvic damage and that he was like hit at the base of the skull and that he had a liquefied brain, which is was not shot. So who knows what's going on with that gun. It's got me intrigued. And then I'll say too, the very ending shot I think is cool. We see a shot of the beach. I think we're seeing those footprints that I mentioned earlier. And then we hear and see some blinds closing, but they're not like blinds that you and I have. They're those like electric, fancy, it all comes down at once blind.
Oh, yeah.
I think of them as like rich people blinds. Like
Yeah.
they're not little mini blinds. They're not like,
No.
nobody's pulling a curtain. It's just
It's
like
a shade. It's a shade.
Yeah.
It gets lowered all at once.
Does it do that in every episode? Or is that just the first episode?
I don't think so.
But it's the kind of thing that if you were looking out onto your view of the ocean, you would have on your giant back windows.
Yes.
And you would flick a little switch or hit a remote and they would go down. So, but I thought that was a cool stylistic kind of ending there. But hey, yeah, that's the end of the episode. One thing, so what happens.
Yes.
I only kind of know what happened because you sort of told me, but you didn't give me all the details
Right.
there. But I have a theory that I want to talk about because, we're talking about the first episode. We're breaking things down.
Okay.
So there's a line you mentioned you're an English major. I was an English major as well. There's a line when they're at the dinner scene that we talked about. Or no, it's not the dinner scene, but it's another scene where Reese is talking to the older daughter and she's talking about college and things like that, planning out her life. And Reese Witherspoon's character says, even the best laid plans of your life go poof in your face. And that phrase, that's kind of a saying, the best laid plans can, go astray. But that saying is in a poem. I forget who wrote the poem, but it's where the title Of Mice and Men comes from. The best laid plans.
The Steinbeck novel.
Yeah, the Steinbeck novel.
of
The
Mice
best
and
laid
Men.
plans of mice and men often go astray. And John Steinbeck was born in Monterey County, which is where this is set. And so that stood out to me as that felt, at least somewhat intentional, perhaps.
Yeah, because he also wrote Cannery Row, which famously Monterey, California is famous for its
for John
Cannery
Steinbeck.
Row.
Right, yeah.
And for Steinbeck.
And so Of Mice and Men, just to spoil Of Mice and Men if you're not familiar with the plot though, is at the end George kills Lenny because Lenny's sort of become a danger and he keeps messing up, and even though George loves Lenny, he has to kill him for the better of everyone else. And so my theory is that whoever does get killed is someone who is presenting a danger to people, and it's not like, hey, I need to murder you in cold blood, but it's like, I need to stop you because you've become too big of an issue and this is for the greater good. That's my theory.
That's an interesting theory.
We'll see if it pans out.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment because I know the answer.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
all right. So I do want to talk too about some other shows we would recommend. We mentioned it before, but if you like Big Little Lies, or if you've not watched Big Little Lies but you've seen some of these other shows, here's some shows that I think are similar. We talked about Sharp Objects, very similar stylistically. Sharp Objects is more of a Southern Gothic kind of a story. Stars Amy Adams, and that's a limited series as well, although I heard they're making a second season. I don't know if it's going to be the same plot. Big Little Lies started off as a limited series, and then they were like, you know what, no, we'll make a second season, and we'll make it not limited, an unlimited series. But Sharp Objects is one. The Affair we talked about on Showtime, the first couple seasons of that, really cool.
Highly recommend the first season. After that, you're on your own.
Also, Dead to Me on Netflix, which is it came out just a few months ago that we've been watching.
Yeah.
Which actually we're going to be talking about next week.
Yes.
But
we sure are.
Before we talk about Dead to Me and before we talk about what we're doing next week, you know what? We're going to play another game. We're going to play a game. We haven't played a game in a couple weeks here on the podcast.
Yeah.
And this game is called Two Truths and a Big Little Lie.
Yeah.
You might be familiar with the icebreaker kind of game, Two Truths and a Lie, where you tell people two true things about you and one lie, and they have to guess which one.
Which I hate. I hate icebreakers.
Oh, I like it.
We had to do this at work a lot, and I hated doing it.
I always like Two Truths and a Lie because I'd always just change it slightly, and they'd be like, oh, that wasn't that exciting.
But we're gonna play it about some of the actors.
Yeah,
on the
not
show.
the characters, but the actual actors.
And you're gonna play the game.
I'm gonna be the one guessing this time. So Gia's prepared it. This is Two Truths and a Big Little Lie. So let's start it off, Gia.
All right. So first we've got Reese Witherspoon. Two truths and a lie about Reese Witherspoon. Okay. Number 1. According to her driver's license, Reese Witherspoon, legally a brunette. Okay. Number 2. Reese Witherspoon is a descendant of one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence.
Aren't we all?
No. No, we're not.
Okay.
Number 3. Reese Witherspoon has stated that if she were a hip hop artist, she'd go by Little Spoon.
I'm going with the third one. That's the lie.
No, that's true.
Okay.
The lie is that she's legally a brunette. I don't know. She could be, but I made that up.
Okay. All right.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Cool. Where are you getting this
she's a
information
blonde.
from?
So this Declaration of Independence thing was in her Wikipedia page.
All right.
But the little spoon thing was in I think it was on a Vogue interview. They asked like 73 questions.
Okay.
And like somebody gives a tour of their house while they're asked these questions, and that was one of the questions.
Cool.
And that was her answer.
All right.
It's fun. I watched a few of these.
Oh my gosh.
In
All right.
preparation for this.
Next one.
All right. Next, we've got Nicole Kidman. Okay. So number 1, Nicole Kidman was named after an elephant.
Okay.
Number 2, Nicole Kidman grew up on a kangaroo farm. Number 3, Nicole Kidman used to date the father of one of her Big Little Lies co-stars.
I'm going to say that she did not grow up on a kangaroo farm. That feels like we're going back to the well with those kangaroo Australia jokes. We have 2 or 3 jokes about Australians.
Yes, you're correct.
All right.
You're correct. She did not grow up on a kangaroo farm.
I wonder if they picked Nicole Kidman for the show because she's Australian. I wonder if the writers and all that, they were like, we got to have Nicole Kidman. I know we're doing an American version, but she's an American actress basically.
Also, a little disclaimer on the named after an elephant thing. That's true, but Nicole Kidman was born in Hawaii. And so in addition to Nicole, she also has a Hawaiian name, which is Hokulani. Okay. And the Hokulani is where she was named after an elephant. Okay.
All right.
The elephant wasn't named Nicole.
That's a weird name for an elephant.
And a person.
Nicole? No, Nicole's a weird name for an elephant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway. All right. Next, we've got Shailene Woodley. Okay. Shailene Woodley makes her own medicine. That's the first thing.
Okay.
Number 2, Shailene Woodley goes into the mountains to forage for her own food. Number 3.
Her last name's Woodley? Okay. Keep going.
Number 3. Shailene Woodley built her own house out of discarded materials she collected on the streets of LA.
I'm going with the second one. She doesn't forage for food.
Nope, you're wrong. She does. She goes into the mountains to forage for her own food because she is like a super hippie.
Was this in the Vogue interview?
No, this was in a list of her hippie statements that I found on BuzzFeed.
All right.
Yeah, but she did not build her own house from discarded materials she found around LA. As far as I know. She might have, but I made it up.
Cool. Okay? Next one.
All right, next one. And the last one.
All right. I think I got one right so far, so.
Yeah, one right.
Okay.
All right. The last one is about Adam Scott.
Oh, excellent.
Okay. Number 1, Adam Scott hosts a podcast about the band U2 called You Talkin' U2 to Me.
Okay.
Number 2, Adam Scott hosts a podcast about the band Talk Talk called You Talk Talkin' to Me.
Okay.
Okay. Number 3, Adam Scott hosts a podcast about the band REM called Are You Talkin' REM? R-E Me? Those are your options. Good luck.
I'm going to go with the second one.
Correct.
Because
he does not have a podcast about the band Talk Talk, but he does have podcasts about U2 and REM.
Right. You know what? I actually screwed it up there. I didn't mean to guess that one because I was thinking like, would you have made up the band? I mean, not made up the band, but I don't know the band Talk Talk, so I don't.
I only know them in that they did the song It's My Life, which was later covered by No Doubt.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, they were like an 80s band.
All right.
Yeah.
So, hey, I got 2 out of 4.
2 out of 4.
50%.
Not too shabby, but fairly shabby.
Yeah, a little shabby.
Yeah.
But that was 2 truths and a big little lie.
By the way, what do you think a big little lie is? What do you think that means? Big little lie.
Big little lie. It's a lie that was, just a little lie, but maybe turned into something big.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's like you're telling like white lies that you don't think are gonna amount to much, but maybe have a big impact.
Like how Shailene Woodley says she doesn't know anybody there, but then there was that guy creeping around the corner at the wharf. What was he up to?
Interesting.
What was he up to? Or how that little kid said he didn't hit that girl, but like maybe he actually did hit that girl. I don't know.
We don't know.
Oh man, Big Little Lie. That's a what is that? An oxymoron?
Oxymoron. Yeah.
I should use that as an example when I'm teaching that. That's easy. Big Little Lie.
There you
Boom.
go.
It's a show. So hey, speaking of shows about people murdering and all that kind of stuff.
Wait, before we close this out, I just want to say Reese Witherspoon, just a joy to watch. She really just I wanted to mention this and I didn't mention it.
You could have mentioned this literally at any time in the podcast.
Well, I'm mentioning it right now because she just really lights up the screen. She's fantastic. She kind of reminds me of Leslie Knope from Parks and Rec.
And she's married to Ben Wyatt in this.
She's married to Ben Wyatt in this. Yeah, Adam Scott. But this is just a plug for Reese Witherspoon in general as a person, lover, fantastic.
I thought you said as a person, as a lover.
Yes.
You want to tell me
I'll bet
what's
she's
going
great.
on? Wow.
Yeah.
Look, Gia's going to be starting her own Reese Witherspoon podcast called You Talking Reese with Me. Reese's Pieces.
Reese's Pieces,
yes.
Yeah.
And you know what, though? Speaking of some other people that are, treasures, we're going to be talking about the show Dead to Me next week.
Yes.
Dead to Me stars Christina Applegate, who I love. She's an anchorman.
Yeah.
She's
married with children.
She's on Married with Children. She's fantastic. And Dead to Me starring Christina Applegate and also starring Linda Cardellini.
Yeah.
Also,
I personally am inclined to dislike her because she broke up Corey and Topanga on Boy Meets World.
This is true. Look, we got to talk about Boy Meets World at least once on this podcast, and we've done it twice today.
Anyway.
And also, James Marsden is in it as well. He is charming in this show. Look, if you have not watched Dead to Me on Netflix, check it out or listen to our podcast and then check it out. Either way, listen to the podcast, but also check out Dead to Me on Netflix. And it's a similar, this week we talked about a show that focuses on women and murder, and there's some suspense because we kind of know what's going on, but we don't know what's going on.
This is another show where somebody's dead.
Somebody is dead in this other show. So that's what we'll be taking a look at next week. So, you know what, guys, thanks for listening. Hey, one other thing I want to mention too is that like several episodes ago, I was talking about how I want to name our fans. You know how podcasts sometimes have fan names, like on My Favorite Murder, they're called Murderinos.
Yep.
And I, because the show is You, Me, and TV, I wanted to call people Duprees, like the movie You, Me, and Dupree. So I'm gonna do that. That's what they're called. They're called Duprees. I feel like I brought it up once and I never brought it up again.
I think that was okay.
I'm gonna throw that hashtag Duprees into things sometimes.
Okay.
Look, speaking of those hashtags and stuff, you guys should follow us on Facebook at You, Me, and TV, and on Twitter at You, Me, and TV Pod, and on Instagram at You, Me, and TV Podcast. And if you could subscribe, give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, that would be awesome. And that's all we got for this week. So thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.
Bye.